Imagine dedicating your life to achieving greatness, reaching the heights of professional sports, and becoming a household name. Now imagine watching all of that success unravel in the most shocking and heartbreaking way. This is the story of a man who went from NFL stardom to being the center of an unthinkable tragedy. Sergio Brown had it all: fame, fortune, and a career that most would envy. But beneath the surface, something far darker was taking hold. What could drive a man so celebrated, a man who had reached the pinnacle of athletic success, to the point where he took his own mother's life? As we unravel this disturbing case, we'll confront questions about family, mental health, and the hidden tolls of a brutal sport. What truly happened, and how could it have come to this? This is the tragic downfall of Sergio Brown, a story that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about the human mind. Sergio Brown's mother, Myrtle Brown, at 73 years old, was a beloved figure in her community. She had just returned from a memorable birthday trip, celebrating her golden years. She was known for her warmth, her kindness, and her generous spirit. A woman who had lived a full and joyful life. But, as we know all too well, even the brightest lights can be extinguished in the most unexpected ways. Sergio Brown was no stranger to success. As a professional football player, he achieved what so many can only dream of: playing for some of the biggest teams in the NFL. With the New England Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars, Sergio reached the pinnacle of professional sports, a stage reserved for only the most talented. But despite the fame and fortune, something seemed to unravel beneath the surface. After retiring from football, Sergio's life took a different path. What began as a celebrated career ended with him back under his mother's roof, dealing with challenges that no one could fully grasp. What were those struggles? Financial difficulties? Or perhaps something deeper? Something unseen? September 14th, 2023. What began as an ordinary day would soon turn into a nightmare for the Brown family, a day forever marked by tragedy. The day started like many others, quiet and unassuming, with Myrtle Brown going about her usual routine. But behind closed doors, something dark was brewing inside her son, Sergio. For weeks, those close to Sergio noticed subtle but alarming changes in his behavior. Withdrawn, agitated, and at times seemingly lost in his own thoughts. Some wondered if the pressure of his post-NFL life was weighing heavily on him. Others speculated that his erratic behavior was the sign of something much more serious. Perhaps a struggle with mental health that had been quietly building over time. Sergio had always been a proud man, someone who didn't easily share his inner turmoil. But it was becoming clear that something was deeply wrong. On that fateful day, it's believed that a confrontation took place between Sergio and his mother Myrtle. While the details remain unclear, neighbors reported hearing raised voices, unusual for the normally calm and respectful household. What exactly triggered the outburst? Was it the pressure of unresolved issues? Or had Sergio finally reached a breaking point after months, maybe even years, of battling his inner demons alone? As the argument escalated, something inside Sergio snapped. The man who had once been celebrated for his strength and discipline became someone unrecognizable. Myrtle's life, which had been filled with love, joy, and community, was tragically taken in those moments. The violence of the act left no doubt that this was not an accident. Myrtle was found beaten and her neck had been broken. Clear signs of a struggle and a brutal end to her life. This wasn't a tragic mishap. It was an intentional act that left the entire community reeling. When news broke of Myrtle's death, shockwaves rippled through their community. Sergio, a man who had once stood in the spotlight of NFL stadiums, was now at the center of a crime that no one could have imagined. The community, grappling with disbelief, couldn't help but wonder what drove him to this point. What caused him to break on that quiet September day? It started with silence, a silence that felt out of place. Myrtle Brown was known for her routine, always in touch with her family, always present. When she didn't answer phone calls or messages that day, her family's initial concern was mild. Perhaps she was just busy, they thought. But as the hours ticked by, that concern quickly grew into panic. Myrtle wasn't the type to disappear without a word. Family members reached out to neighbors and friends, asking if anyone had seen her. When no one had, their fear deepened. By the end of the day, the Brown family knew something was wrong. With every hour that passed, their hope of finding Myrtle safe began to wane. A missing persons report was filed, and soon a frantic search began. Neighbors, friends, and police scouring the local area in desperate hope. Days passed without a word, and with each passing hour, dread crept in. Then, the unthinkable happened. A neighbor walking near a creek stumbled upon a sight that no one in the close-knit community could have prepared for. Myrtle's lifeless body, discarded like something that didn't matter. The woman who had been a beacon of kindness and strength was gone in the most brutal way imaginable. The shock of her death was compounded by an even more gut-wrenching realization. The person responsible for taking her life was her own son, Sergio. For Myrtle's family, the grief was almost too much to bear. Losing a mother in such a violent way and at the hands of her own child left them reeling, unable to comprehend how this nightmare had become their reality. As a result of the discovery of Myrtle's body, and before Sergio was named the prime suspect, his behavior took a strange and public turn. He began posting bizarre and erratic videos on social media, talking about conspiracies, claiming he was being followed by the FBI, and spiraling into incoherent rants. These posts shocked those who knew him and added to the public's growing confusion. Was this the behavior of a man in deep distress, struggling with his mental state, or was there something even more complex at play? Soon, conversations about Sergio's mental state came to the forefront. You see, there's something that many former athletes, particularly football players, face. A condition known as CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a degenerative brain disease often caused by repeated head injuries. The symptoms are devastating. Memory loss, confusion, mood swings, even aggression. Could this explain the unthinkable act of a son against his own mother? Sergio had spent 7 years in the NFL, enduring the physical toll that comes with the sport. And like many others before him, there were signs that he might have been suffering from the effects of CTE. The erratic behavior, the sudden outbursts, these could be pieces of a larger, tragic puzzle. As the investigation continued, a complicated picture began to emerge. Evidence pointed to Sergio's involvement. His DNA was found at the scene, and surveillance footage showed him burning items in a fire pit, likely in an attempt to destroy evidence. But the defense would argue that his mental health was a key factor, that he wasn't fully aware of his actions due to his deteriorating condition. On the other side, prosecutors painted a different picture. They saw Sergio's actions, fleeing the country, using his mother's credit cards, as a sign of someone trying to escape responsibility. Was this a calculated crime, or the tragic result of an untreated, undiagnosed mental illness? Eventually, Sergio was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read, a verdict that would stir up strong emotions on both sides. For some, it was just a recognition of his mental state. For others, it felt like justice had not been fully served. The question now lingers. Was this a man driven to an unthinkable act by forces beyond his control? Or was it something darker? Something more deliberate? Stories like this force us to confront uncomfortable truths. They make us ask difficult questions about mental health, trauma, and the lasting impact of the sports we love. Sergio Brown's downfall is a tragedy in every sense of the word, one that will leave lasting scars on his family, his community, and the world of professional sports. But within this tragedy lies a critical lesson. Mental health issues, particularly those connected to high-impact sports like football, cannot be ignored. The warning signs are often subtle at first: changes in behaviour, isolation, or bursts of anger, but they point to something deeper that must be addressed. If these signs had been taken more seriously, could this outcome have been different? Could intervention have saved both Sergio and his mother from this devastating end? The reality is that mental health, especially in high-stress environments, is as important as physical health. We need to ask ourselves, how can we better support athletes, veterans, or anyone dealing with trauma before they spiral out of control? What systems need to be in place to prevent another tragedy like this? In the end, Sergio Brown's story is a painful reminder that we must look beyond success and fame to truly understand the struggles someone may be facing behind closed doors. His story is not just about one man's tragic fall, but about the consequences of leaving mental health unchecked. Remember, every crime has a story, and every story has a lesson.